Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of News Dose, where I give you some of the latest news in gaming. And one thing that has been happening in the game industry here recently is a bit of consolidation. What I mean by that is some of these bigger publishers such as Microsoft and THQ Nordic in specific has been buying up a lot of these smaller indie and AA studios. Now, we've seen Sony drop their hat in the ring as well, and of course they've just acquired Insomniac Games, but it now looks like they may be interested in some Asian studios as well. There was also several other Sony-related news today about some of their highly anticipated first-party games, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And Saga also announced a game today, which is looking absolutely excellent. But for the moment, let's focus on this Asian acquisition rumor for just a moment. In an interview with Shu Yoshida at the Tokyo Game Show, Shu made a comment about the possibility of Asian developers joining Sony in the future. The exact quote was, "SIE Worldwide Studios is also a studio that plays a role in creating and deploying games in earnest as a publisher, and I think it's rare in the world of developers from Japan, the US, and Europe to participate. There is a possibility that Asian developers may join us in the future, and when that happens, we're starting to think that it would be interesting to think about creating games for the Asian market as well." Now, from the sounds of it, Shu isn't talking about Japan when he says Asian developers, but rather it sounds as if he may be talking about Korea, China, and some other Asian countries as well. Of course, Sony is in ChinaJoy every year, which is a big convention for games in China, and they have been trying to break into the emerging console market there, so it may be that a developer or two has caught Sony's interest there. We do know about Genshin Impact, developed by miHoYo, which right now is famously known as the Breath of the Wild copycat PlayStation 4 exclusive, and where a disgruntled fan they smashed a PlayStation 4 at ChinaJoy because the striking similarities to Zelda Breath of the Wild. While I'm not saying that Sony would acquire this developer in particular, I do think a Chinese developer would make sense as they continue with their efforts to expand into China. Who could Sony be looking at in Asian countries for a possible acquisition? Speaking of Sony, we did get to hear about a couple of their games, one being Sucker Punch's upcoming title, Ghost of Tsushima, where Shu Yoshida talked about how overwhelmed he was by the graphics, going so far as to say that it makes Japanese scenery 1.2 times more beautiful. That's an interesting quote there and oddly specific, and I'm not inclined to disagree with him on this either. We have seen Ghost of Tsushima, and even when I saw it, I thought it just looked too good to be a PlayStation 4 title, which really brings me to my point. I do think that Ghost of Tsushima will be a cross-gen title available for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and that it will be one of the first showcases for the PlayStation 5. I mean, if we look at the visual quality that we've seen so far, and we see all the foliage and the wind blowing across sprawling landscapes, the overall animation of the characters, and it just looks phenomenal. Maybe it does run on PlayStation 4, but I wouldn't be shocked if this is a PlayStation 5 title when all is said and done. Now, sticking with Sony for a moment, Shu Yoshida also said that they have a vision for upcoming Media Molecule game, Dreams, to be ongoing for 10 years. Now, I know games as a service is a big thing right now, but that's a very long time. But with that said, I could actually see this happening. Of course, Dreams is a play, create, share type of game, and the creator tools really do look phenomenal. I mean, I've seen people make some absurdly great stuff on there, and you can even make stuff for PlayStation VR, so I think people will make some great things. The thing I worry about with Dreams, though, is how successful will be from a financial aspect. While yes, the creator tools are beyond good, I think the main draw of buying a game is if the game itself is actually good. Little Big Planet, which is their previous game, was able to do this thanks to its fun platforming and adorable art style with a likable mascot, but I haven't really seen that with Dreams. So I'm curious to how marketable this game actually is. So again, while the creator tools look amazing, I worry that it will not be enough to interest the mass public. They do have a single player mode though, so maybe it will turn out great and the game is a booming success, and I do hope it actually is. Guess we'll have to wait and see on that. I know so far this has been a Sony heavy news dose, so I'll keep this next one brief, but one last thing from Sony. They did announce State of Play for September 24th, so that's something to really get excited about for you PlayStation fans out there. Maybe we'll see The Last of Us Part 2 there, and hopefully we do. I would imagine we'll also see Medieval 2, considering it's releasing in October, but yeah, only 5 short days until the next State of Play. Now that we've finished up with all the Sony stuff, let's move on to another publisher because Sega announced a new game, a Total War Troy, developed by Creative Assembly. Not only is Creative Assembly a good developer, but they decided on an interesting topic too. I've always been interested in the ancient Greece type stuff, and Troy being the classic story it is, I'm really excited to see where they take this game. A Total War Saga, of course, is a strategy game, and it will be out in 2020, though no official release date has been announced just yet. In other news, Zelda Link's Awakening reviews started to come out today, and it looks like, just like the original, it too will be an instant classic. It's almost as if it's a link to the past. But for real, it does seem the reviews seem to be glowing about Link's Awakening, and really the only pitfalls it seems to have is with some frame rate issues here and there. Now, I'm just curious about how much this game sells right now because, like I said, for me, I've always been a big fan of the isometric Zelda games, and actually, I like them even more than the 3D games. So maybe if this is a success, they will also remake some of the other isometric Zelda games. My favorite being Oracle of Seasons, so I would be head over heels if they announced that too. Please, Nintendo, make it happen. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is a comment made by Platinum Games' Yoko Taro. And if you Nintendo fans have been enjoying their most recent game, Astral Chain, spoiler alert, it's amazing. He made a little comment about a possible port for Nintendo Switch. During an interview, he was asked about bringing Nier Automata to the Nintendo Switch, where he then laughed and said, "You already know the answer. It's, please ask Square Enix." Now, this comment needs a little context because a year ago, producer Yosuke Saito was asked the same question and said, "From our perspective in Platinum Games, if Square Enix pays us to do it, we'll make you a version for the Switch. We'll make you a version for Super Nintendo if you want anything you ask for." So there it is. If you want Nier Automata, two different developers inside of Platinum Games is nudging you to go ask Square Enix themselves. And hey, if enough people ask, maybe they will take notice. I mean, if Witcher 3 is possible on the Switch, I would assume Nier Automata is as well. What I will say though is Nier Automata is actually one of the best JRPG games I've ever had the privilege of playing, so if more people get to enjoy it, that'd be great. Anyways though, that is it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit that bell notification and subscribe button. Peace out.